Gotham Knights is a weird game. It has some good ideas, but what lets it down is how it's executed. It doesn't help that it's being compared to what some people would consider the best superhero games of all time, that being the Arkham series. If you do compare the game to the Arkham games, then yes, you will be disappointed by Gotham Knights. But if you look at the game from an isolated perspective, then it's not the worst game in the world. But saying that, I am still quite mixed on it even after finishing the game. Before we get into this video properly, I just want to say that if you enjoy this video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more videos like this one, why not consider subscribing. I also have a Twitch page where you can watch me play through the games I will be making videos on, so follow over there will be much appreciated as well. Anyway, back to the video. The story of Gotham Knights hinges on the fact that at the start of the game, Batman is dead, and the subsequent runtime is how the rest of the Bat family rise to fill the shoes left by the Dark Knight. While the team is grieving the loss of their mentor and friend, they're also trying to solve Batman's last case to determine how he actually died in the first place. Over the course of the game's plot, they find out that now Batman is dead, the shadowy group known as the Court of Owls have finally decided to rise to the surface and take Gotham City as their own. The Court of Owls are the only enemies you'll be up against over the course of the story, as there are also some Batman's rogues gallery who make an appearance to try and help or hinder the Knights. Some of these characters are Penguin, Talia al Ghul and Harley Quinn. The characters in Gotham Knights are my favourite part of the game hands down. Each one of the Knights are distinct in their own way, which is nice for a game where you play as multiple characters, as the last thing you want is for all the playable characters acting the same, as that'll make the game very boring. If you just beeline the main story, then you could say that the characters could do with more depth added to them, and that is where the character stories come in. Either around the map or in the Belfry, there are cutscenes that you can trigger that will have the character you're playing as either talking to Alfred or one of the other Knights. It's these cutscenes that made me fall in love with these characters. I remember more of these one-off moments than I do bits from the main story. That's how much I like them, as the writing for me is a lot less of the standard superhero stuff and it goes a bit deeper into the characters' backgrounds from the comics. The gameplay in Gotham Knights can be separated into two categories. The first one is the combat side of gameplay. To put it shortly, I was not impressed with the combat of Gotham Knights, as I find it very repetitive. During the early game, I let them off and you don't have many abilities unlocked, and you have to rely on the standard light and heavy attacks. And combos in the game are non-existent, as all they boil down to is switching between light and heavy melee attacks. Not only are there melee attacks in the game, but there are also ranged attacks as well, and these aren't that much better. The main problem I have with the ranged attacks is that when doing a heavy ranged attack, they had an issue locking onto a target, and instead of attacking the enemy with said heavy attack, the character I was playing as would just attack thin air. And if I was fighting the talent enemies who you need to do a heavy ranged attack on them first in order to damage them, it became very frustrating very quickly. A way that makes each knight not a carbon copy of themselves is thanks to the momentum abilities. These are special moves that each of the knights can use to deal major damage to either singular or multiple enemies. Overall, I'd say that they're fun to use a few times and then they get old pretty fast, like most things in the game. Moving on to the other side of gameplay of Gotham Knights, that is traversal. The main way that you will be getting around Gotham Knights when you're not on foot will be using the bat cycle. I don't love the bat cycle, as handling it at times can be very odd, as moving the control stick a tiny bit can cause you to go shooting off into a building or a wall. And another thing I didn't like is that if you want to go over an object, you have to do a wheelie first, which is a fine enough concept, but when you get over said object, you are shot into the air and stay airborne for way too long. So long in fact that it makes me question how heavy the bat cycle is to begin with. If you don't want to use the bat cycle to get around the city, then you could use the grapple gun to propel yourselves over the buildings. Now my problem with this is to do with aiming the grapple itself, as there were so many times where I was looking at the location I wanted to grapple to, but did the character grapple there? No. They thought it was better to grapple to the building to the left, off screen, which really started to annoy me the more it happened. Now the last way you can get around Gotham Knights is by using the knighthood traversal method, which is different for each knight. For Batgirl, she has a glide similar to Batman's from the Arkham series, but not as fun to control. Robin can use a teleport on the Watchtower to teleport short distances, which gets old very quickly. Nightwing can use a glider which acts similarly to Batgirl's Cape Glide, but unlike hers he can actually gain altitude. And lastly we have the most randomest one of them all, and that is Red Hood's one. His one is that he has a mystical jump which allows him to jump on platforms as low as descent, and it somehow links with the Lazarus Pit, which I don't quite understand. The last bit of the game I want to talk about is the side stuff. Let's start off with the thing you'll be doing most in the game, and those are the crimes. Crimes in Gotham Knights can be separated into two types: random crimes and premeditated crimes. Random crimes are self-explanatory. While exploring Gotham, you can stumble across enemies doing random things like attacking civilians, and by completing these you'll get clues that will unlock premeditated crimes the next night. Premeditated crimes are much more challenging than random crimes, as with these ones you have objectives to complete, like defusing bombs without being seen or freeing hostages. Just like with most things in the game, once you've done them a few times, they get old very fast. So to summarise my thoughts on Gotham Knights, I think that it's a fun game if it's played in small bursts, as otherwise you'll get bored of it very quickly. If I had to recommend some other superhero games you could play, I'd say either the Arkham games or the Insomniac Spider-Man games.